woman, and I've been a direct action trainer and practitioner for 25 years. I'm with the Ruckus Society, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm glad to be here with you on the front lines tonight. And on behalf of Frontline, welcome to all of you. We're so glad you could join us tonight for this training. We'll be getting this training started in just a moment, but before we do that, I'd like to turn it over to Tomas Kennedy from United We Dream, who will talk about Spanish interpretation for this evening. Thank you, Tomas.
Know that Spanish interpretation is provided on this call. If you wish to hear the Spanish interpretation, you can select the globe icon on your computer or the more or three dots icon on your tablet or smartphone. You can select language interpretation and choose Spanish in the pop-up. Le queremos dar buenas noches y bienvenidas al encuentro virtual del Frontline. Y sí hay interpretación en español. Si ustedes desean escuchar la interpretación en español, pueden seleccionar el icono del globo en la computadora donde dice More, o hay tres puntitos en su tableta o teléfono y pueden seleccionar interpretación de idiomas y después español en el menú que aparece. So now I'm going to turn it back to Sharon, who's the MC for the call. So thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you, Tomas. Muchas gracias. All right, so let's get to it. Tonight's training is the second in a series of frontline trainings to prepare us to take action during this congressional recess that's starting on March 27th. We're so glad you're here tonight, and we want to stress the importance of getting trained before taking action. And we're off to a great start because you all are here tonight. So welcome again. Frontline hosts calls every Wednesday night that alternate between political analysis and skills training. Be sure to join us next week at this same time for our mass call, Winning the People's Agenda. We'll discuss a number of federal proposals that would translate into our people getting the care and relief that we need and deserve, addressing economic justice, racial justice, climate justice, democracy reform, and how all these issues are connected. Don't miss it. Tonight's training will focus on how to hold your member of Congress accountable through direct action. Before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit more about the coalition. The Frontline is the collaboration of the Movement for Black Lives, United We Dream, the Rising Majority, and the Working Families Party. Last spring and summer, we witnessed the largest social movement in US history. We know many of you took to the streets to defend Black lives. We also know many of you worked hard to move that energy into power-building strategies. Together, Frontline will keep building that collective power to fight for a bold and progressive agenda for the Biden-Harris administration and beyond. We know that the work to bring forward a real democracy, racial justice, immigrant justice, an economic system that is not exploitative, and protecting our people and our planet will take all of us working together for the long haul. Many of you have already taken action with the Frontline through our text team, election defenders, Joy to the Polls, or voter engagement with one of our partner organizations. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If this is your first time joining the Frontline, I encourage you to text the word Frontline to 30403, there it is, on the screen for you to join us. We need each and every one of you right now on the Frontline at this moment. So for tonight's call, we're going to learn about direct action, why we do it, and how it advances the needs of our communities. First, I'll be talking a little bit about what direct action is and what logic behind it is. Then I'll turn it over to Robbie Clark from Dark Matter and the Blackout Collective, who is going to go through organizing a direct action and give you some examples. Then Tomas Kennedy with United We Dream will tell us a direct action success story from when he bird-dogged Rick DeSantis, the governor of Florida. I can't wait to hear that story myself. Following that, Yong Jong Cho from the Green New Deal Network will tell us exactly what bird dogging is and how it works. I'm excited to hear from all of our trainers tonight, and I hope you are too. Let's get started. It's gonna be a good one. Our families, our economy, our democracy is in crisis. This recovery recess, we will show up together to demand Congress go bold and go big to address it. No excuses, no exceptions. It's time for Congress to urgently deliver jobs, justice, climate solutions, tribal sovereignty, and real democracy for all our people. We demand a real recovery now. For us, we will take action to move our communities on the front lines forward. That means we're not going to accept the money for the police guised as reform that's in the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We will push for the Breathe Act to defend police and reinvest those dollars in our communities, because that is what will prevent crime and will keep our people safe. We want you to sit down with legislators and tell them who you are and what we truly need to move forward. We are Frontline Forward. This means we are not going to allow for the separation of families or children in cages and a return to normal when it comes to immigration. We want comprehensive immigration reform. We want DACA passed now and a path to citizenship for everyone here and everyone who needs to be here. We want you to sit down with legislators and tell them that too. We are Frontline Forward. We are not going to accept floods and wildfires, cold snaps, privatized power grids that fail, or pollution that continues killing our people. We are going to push for a Green New Deal and investments in green infrastructure that help us build a vibrant economy to recover or build back better for both the people and the planet. We are working with our coalition partners in over a dozen states that are pushing for the Thrive agenda, because that is what our communities need to move forward. We are Frontline Forward. And finally, as part of our bold, united front, we understand that we must strengthen and protect our democracy and our vote. We will not allow elected servants to roll back the civil rights our ancestors fought for. We will protect our right to vote against those who would chip and gerrymander it away from us. We will not allow our votes to be called fraud because they were cast by Black and brown people. We are going to name and shame those who tried to invalidate the past election and push for an end to the filibuster. We will fulfill our ancestors' wildest dreams and push to expand voting rights, because that is what our communities need to move forward. We are Frontline Forward. If you're ready to take action, then text the word action, there it is on your screen, to 30403 so that you can join us for this important congressional recess action. You're with me now, right? A part of it. You're on the front lines making this people's agenda a reality. We as the front line are going to advance, and we are taking everyone with us. We're giving you the knowledge and the tools to move our communities forward. So are you with me? Say it now. Frontline Forward. Join us by texting action to 30403 and sign up to take part in this recess, either by going to an event or leading an action yourself. So now that we're grounded in why we're taking action in this congressional recess and that we want to move our frontline communities forward, I want to briefly address the question of why do we take action? And the answer is really simple: because it works. Every direct action has a purpose. We don't take action just for action's sake. Strategic actions are grounded in organizing work, like the work of Frontline. Organizing work that moves and informs our opposition of the changes that are needed for us. But as we know, the rule makers are not often moved by the needs of our communities, and it requires us to accelerate our organizing through direct action. Think of it as driving a car. Organizing gets our miles per hour from 0 to 50, and action takes us from 50 to 100. Strategic direct actions are grounded in strong logic. That means your action is an appropriate and necessary escalation of the organizing work you're already engaging in. Your action tactic being whatever kind of action you choose to take, and there are lots of tactics and you will hear more about them, your action goal, your action visuals, and your action message should be in alignment with your organizing goal. A direct action should be pushing us closer to what we ultimately want. Sometimes actions literally open doors to rooms where decision makers are forced to listen to us and engage with us in planning towards our goal, or getting us what we want and deserve. A strategic direct action should also be immediately and easily understandable by the average passerby. Remember, when our action is grounded in organizing, we create ways to bring more people into our movement. We do this in action by storytelling. Our action should make clear why we are here, what we want to gain, and who can give it to us. This should be done in simple and creative ways with messages that are short and easy to comprehend, with visual art that tells the story of the problem that we are trying to solve. Actions should provide the average passerby with a way to reach our opposition and support our organizing goal. For example, call Congressperson so-and-so and tell them we want to defund the police and redirect funds to our communities. Strategic actions are also creative. This includes adapting to the current conditions of living in a pandemic, social distancing, and shifting tactics to things like car caravans so we can all participate and stay safe. Finally, strategic direct action should lift up the voices of those who are directly impacted by the problem. Remember, we may all be impacted, but some of our communities face more devastating effects. It's important that actions as well as solutions are led by those most impacted by the problem. In short, direct action gets the goods. Sometimes it takes more than one action. Sometimes actions push on our limits of personal risk and of creativity. Direct action requires training, planning, and thorough preparation. So thanks for being here again. And just how do we do that? So to answer that question, I'm going to turn it over to my comrade, Robbie Clark, who is with Dark Matter with the Blackout Collective and is going to talk to you about organizing a direct action. Take it away, Robbie.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, everybody, and thanks to the Frontline for hosting such a critical training. My name is Robbie Clark. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a member of Dark Matter with the Blackout Collective, and I'm here to talk about what direct action is. So direct action is a tactic that stops business as usual. Its purpose is to create a moral crisis or a crisis of the conscience with the public, and to create a political or economic crisis for the state, elites, or big corporations. In our case, we're going to use direct action to name and shame Republicans and other conservative politicians who are complicit in the suppression of Black and Brown communities. So how do we make direct actions happen? How do we design a powerful action? So our first step is always to have a squad. Always got to squad up. And you want to build a team with people who you know and who have complementary skill sets to yours. And if you're, joining an action or organizing one, you don't want to go alone. The people who know what you're up to should be the people that you trust. When you're organizing an action, it's great to have folks lead on different elements so you can move quickly and hold a collective bird's eye view. Some roles to consider for a direct action are ensuring that you have folks that are the lead action coordinators, making sure that you have someone in charge of media, visuals, outreach, logistics, and safety. And as you're bringing your crew together, you want to ask a few different questions. What level of risk are we willing to take? What skills do we have in our group? And how many people will participate? How much money or supplies do we have access to? And also, what other resources do we have, like our relationships? And we also want to know things about what inspires us and what kind of support will we need in the different scenarios that might play out and after we do the action, including, that can include everything, including medical resources. Step 2 is we want to take some time to imagine. Like, we want to think about what is going to be a powerful intervention to disrupt the status quo. And what do we hope that our action will do for our community? And we want to remember our action logic. Does our tactic make sense? Is it easy to understand? Like, even if you're not familiar with the issue, can someone see our action and understand what it is that we're trying to say, what the point is that we're trying to get across? And after you do some visioning with your crew and thinking about your resources, you want to choose a goal or an intention that you have for taking your action. Then step 3 is all about getting ready. So this is where we do the research on our target, we do the scouting of our location. We want to know where our target is going to be. We want to check out the layout of the location where we're going to hold our action. And, since we are going to be putting pressure on an elected official, we know that that's our target. What about our audience? Who are the people that we're trying to reach with our direct action? All good actions tell a story. And we want to think about the story that we want to tell with our actions. What is it that we want to say to the Congress people and to our community? The other thing about getting ready that's really important is to ensure that you have action agreements that respect the whole squad's risk level and the collective intention that you have for your action. And, that includes all of those things in addition to like a plan for how your visuals and your art are going to get to the action or any other materials or props that you have. You also want to create either symbols or logos or some kind of colored armband or something to show unity or distinguish the different action roles that people have. And you also want to make sure that before your action, you run through different scenarios and worst case scenarios. Make sure that you and your crew have a clear way that you're making decisions in the midst of the action that you decide in your planning phase. Because once you're in the heat of the action, it gets really hard to make decisions if you don't already have a plan. So you want to make sure you do that before. And so some additional roles that folks can take, and that you want to make sure that people are clear on these roles going into the action. You want to have an action coordinator. You want to know who's the tactical leadership, who are the folks that are going to make these decisions, who are your press spokesperson or spokespeople, who's in charge of rounding up the press hustler, who's going to be documenting the action through photography or videos, and who's your support team, who's going to help with the other logistics and jail support, who's your police liaison, in case you have police that come, who's the person who's responsible for communicating with them to ensure that you can carry out your action, and who's your de-escalators or your peacekeepers, to just make sure that in case there's any counter protesters or anyone who wants to heckle or troll your action, who are the folks that are going to de-escalate that and again ensure that your action can be safe. And if you have a program, you want to definitely make sure that you have an MC and a sound system and speakers. And so after you've taken those first 3 steps, then you're ready for your action. You want to get into formation. And getting into formation means that you've done all of the scenario planning and you've worked through all of the different ways that you and your crew can think of, all the different variables that can happen, in your direct action. So you've worked through all that. So now you want to put all of your support systems in place. So I wanted to offer some tips and some tricks on how to think creatively with your squad. One of the games that I wanted to offer is a game called Target, Tactic, and Location. So with your crew, you want to have 3 different bowls or 3 different containers or piles, and you want to brainstorm as many targets as you can think of. And you can put your real target in that mix too. And then you want to think of as many tactics as you can think of. And you can, put tactics that you would really want to use. Make up some stuff. And then you want to think about as many different locations, right? And some stuff should be serious, some stuff should be silly. And then you pick one from each. Pick a target, a tactic, and a location from each pile at random, and then work with your crew about 15 minutes or so, designing an action based off of that target, tactic, and location. And you really want to think outside the box when we're planning our actions, because sometimes we can get really constrained and only think that action should look a certain way. And an exercise like this helps us get out of the box. And the action that you workshop may not be the exact action that you and your crew use, but working with those concrete ideas that you and your squad come up with, it can make it easier and more accessible and actually more fun than just sitting around and thinking about an action. So after you've done some work, you go back to your target and think about, how you can apply some of the ideas that you and your crew came up with: images, props, messaging, etc. And so we're gonna try a fun idea. And right now you're seeing Ted Cancun cruise memes on the beach. And we really, we want to hear from folks, what kind of action would you do on Cancun cruise, right? So we want folks to use these memes that are showing now for inspiration. And while folks are thinking about that, I'm going to talk about some COVID safe actions. So, we're a year into our pandemic, and I really want to talk quickly about a really COVID safe action idea, which is the Car Caravan. And car caravans are accessible for people with different health needs, and it's a mobilization that allows you to take up plenty of space and you can distance. Car caravans are like any other action in that you follow the same steps. It's a lot like planning a march. You want to scout. You want to scout that route. Scout the route. You want to and while you're looking at the route, you want to see where there are one-way streets or two-way streets. You want to note where there are large intersections, and you want to make a plan for keeping your car caravan together through those intersections. And you want to make your messaging loud and clear. You can decorate cars with signage. You can have a sound truck blasting music or speeches. You can even connect with a local radio station to broadcast your program for your action. And everyone in their cars can put that station on the dial, tune into the station, hear the program, and also get updates on the route. You can also do a socially distanced rally. And ways to do it safely are that you really, again, follow the same steps that you would for any other kind of rally. You would want to make sure you have a loud sound system so people can hear it from far away. And then you can also use things like signage or chalk or even props to break up the crowd so that way, people socially distance and are at a safe distance. And of course, asking people to wear masks. So before I wrap, I want to offer some quick feedback on one of the action ideas, on any action ideas that folks have about targeting Ted Cancun cruise. And so I know folks are tuning in on different platforms. We want to thank everybody who's tuning in. And for the folks who are on Zoom, who have access to the chat box, does anyone want to share an action idea that you have about Ted Cancun cruise? If you drop a short description of what you're thinking in the chat box, I will have access to that on my phone, and I'll see what you're saying, and we can, rip off of some ideas for a direct action together. Yes. All right. So a sit-in where you bring beach chairs and beach gear. Yes, right? Bringing sand to the beach, right? Everybody, gets their floaties and bring some surfboards, right? And you can set up, you know, at a place where, you know, Ted Cruz is gonna be at, you know. Oh yes, sunscreen samples printed with Stop Ted Cruz talking points. That would be awesome. That would be awesome, right? So that would be great. Sunscreen samples, you know, you can blow up, you know, pictures of Ted Cruz on the beach and have those, you know, sitting around. You know, maybe call it Life's the Beach if you're Ted Cruz cruising on the beach. All kinds of beach things that you can play with there, right? And finding out where Ted is, then you can, you know, make that point. If you happen to know where Ted Cruz's district office is, maybe you set up a beach there, right? There's all kinds of ways that you can, you know, do a sit-in, you know, with beach chairs and all kinds of, you know, beach gear, and really bring attention to the audacity of Ted Cruz going to Cancun while folks are suffering from an unprecedented winter storm. So now that Texas is frozen over, Ted, we are here at the beach with you. We're bringing the beach to you, right? Oh, a bunch of other ideas came in. So car caravans, right? So a car caravan with beach, you know, it can be a cruise on cruise. The car caravan with beach and tropical music and signage. Yes. Oh, and someone also said taking all their dogs to his lawn. Well, that is hilarious. But yeah, so cruise on cruise, right? With your car caravan, have a bunch of signs. You know, he's an author. You can, you know, redo the covers of his books with, you know, outlandish things that he said. You know, what else is coming in? So that's great. I love cruise on cruise. That would be awesome. Tropical music, great. So those are great ideas. So, you know, I'm ready to see the cruise on cruise. And so those are really great ideas. I hope folks keep them coming. There will be folks, direct action coaches that folks can work with around all of these ideas. And so just to start to close out, I do want us to have some notes on safety. And so preparation and practice is really what makes your direct action safe. Even if you're like, oh, our idea is really simple or it's really straightforward, there are a ton of variables that could change the outcome. So you want to make sure that you're planning ahead and that you're practicing what happens if you have to adapt quickly and how you're going to communicate when you have to adapt. So you want to stay with your crew, right? So some of the questions that you want to ask when you're preparing for the safety of your direct action is, you know, how is a team going to stay united if things get out of hand or if situations change? How will we de-escalate a situation if there's plainclothes police provocateurs or counter-protesters or angry community members that try to disrupt the discipline of your action or create conflict? Who's most at risk in our team, and how are we prepared to support those folks? So you really also want to make sure that you have an emergency contact and that you have folks who are not at the action who know where you are, who you can call on in case you get arrested or in case of other emergencies. And you want to make sure that everyone in your squad has that contact and that all of those contacts are in communication. You want to make sure you have things like water, snacks, care bags, and you want to make sure that you're prepared for jail support and also that you have an aftercare plan. Actions can be traumatic, especially if you're confronting angry people or if you plan to risk arrest. So plan to take care of your needs after. Plan to take care of your body, your mind, your spirit, and your soul. And make sure that your team also has a plan to take care of themselves after the actions happen. And most importantly, be safe, you know, have a good time, and stay grounded in your purpose. So now I'm excited to kick it over to Thomas from United We Dream so you can hear about an action success story. Thomas, are you ready to share your moment of greatness in bird dogging DeSantis?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm very excited to be with you all tonight. My name is Tomas. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I serve as the undeniable campaign manager for United We Dream. So I guess whenever we're ready, we'll watch the video.
Shame on you! You are an embarrassment! You are an embarrassment! We're getting record-breaking cases every day, and you are doing nothing! You are falsifying information, and you are misleading the public. Over 4,000 people have died, and you are blaming the protesters. You guys have no plan, and you're doing nothing. Shame on you! Shame on you! Don't touch social distancing. Don't touch it. Shame on both of you. You guys are misleading the public. You have no plan. 4,000 people have died, and we're getting record cases every day. Every day. Shame on you. You should resign, Ron DeSantis. Resign.
Yeah, so that was my moment with the infamous governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. So I guess I'll start out by saying that that moment came pretty spontaneous. We have basically a squad that was just detailed that basically is a rapid response team here in Florida that's meant to basically track the activities of elected officials, that we know are not serving the people and that need accountability. Ron DeSantis being, the chief culprit here in Florida. So, we in this WhatsApp group that we basically are constantly sharing details of the schedule of these elected officials, what they're doing, opportunities for bird dogging. And somebody basically put out his schedule for the day. And we knew that he was going to do that press conference at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami with an hour or so notice. Nobody could make it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to drop what I'm doing because I'm really pissed off. This was in June 2020, peak COVID, peak of Florida, record-breaking cases, no vaccine back then. The government here was moving really slow. They were lying on the numbers. They were misleading the public. So I hopped in my car. I made sure that, as was detailed, I called my folks. I called our communications people. We were ready to share stuff. In case I got arrested, I had people ready to bail me out, to support me. And I got to Jackson Memorial Hospital and I instantly started thinking, okay, what's going to be my story, right? Because I needed to get inside this press conference. So what I did is I went to the security checkpoint and I told them that I was a blogger and that I was there with the press. And I happened to have a press badge from an action that I had participated in DC in 2018. It wasn't dated. And I showed this press badge. For some reason, it all worked. They believed my story. I got in, I sat down there, tried to look, non-suspicious, inconspicuous, and just waited until, the governor walked in with the mayor of Miami, who's another, really scummy Republican, ex-mayor of Miami. And I think it's important to not jump the gun and immediately do the action, but let it sort of let the moment sink in, let the officials get a little comfortable, look for the right moment, let the media get comfortable, make sure that all the cameras are rolling. And once I felt it was good, 10 minutes in or so, I got up and I did what I did. I think it's, if you hear the video, I keep yelling the same things over and over. That's because, in my head, I had built a little script of what I wanted to say and the points that I really wanted to hit. And I was really focused on saying that because, especially in the media, you're only going to get a soundbite, right? You're only going to get 15 to 30 seconds in. So you want to make sure that the media is going to capture on what you're going to say and what you want them to cover, right? So it's really important that you have at least a little script or something that you're gonna say. even that little moment that I have where I tell the guy like social distance, that was actually like deliberate. I thought of like adding it in there because I knew that they were gonna do that. I wanted to highlight the lack of, COVID concerns. And I thought it would be like, it would add like a touch of humor that would help viralize the moment a little bit. And it did. And I think that moment really went viral. It was covered by national publications, English, Spanish. And I think in terms of why it was successful, and why it was impactful, is that I love doing these sorts of things at press conferences because the media is already captured there, right? Like you don't have to send out a press release, you don't have to like get the media out there. They're already there. The cameras are rolling. They're ready to cover the event. And if you can derail it, the media loves it because obviously it's sensationalism. It's a viral moment. It adds excitement. So they will very likely cover your interruption if you do it within the press conference. Another thing that's important here is that it disrupted the narrative about COVID that the governor's office wanted to portray, right? Up until that moment, the media had been very, very lenient and non-questioning with the governor's office and with the governor. And that's one of the reasons why I went there, because I was frustrated by the lack of pushback and questioning that the governor was receiving. So I wanted to basically disrupt the narrative and make sure that they weren't telling the story that they wanted to tell, right? And in fact, his communications director at the time was fired 2 days after this incident. And it was said that this was one of the factors that led to that, this incident. And I'm not the type of person to get happy for anyone losing their job, but these people get paid to lie and mislead and do a lot of harm to our community, So that's a factor here. And then I just want to say that this named and shame actors that can and should do better for our communities, right? So I think that's a really important factor here, right? That these people that have been lying, that have been serving corporate interests, that have been putting people over profit time and again, throughout their tenure, but during this public health crisis, the consequences of putting, profits over people has deadly consequence, right? So again, what we were really trying to do with this action is, disrupt the narrative about COVID that the governor was trying to tell. And I think we were really successful in doing that. So then, I just want to invite folks to, try this, confront these elected officials, shame them, disrupt their narrative. And, again, if you can do it in a place where the media is already captured, like the media will likely cover your story. If they kick you out of the press conference, they'll probably follow you outside and try to get an interview of what your side is, So I've just found that this tactic is really successful. So I just want to thank you all for having me on to share, this story, this direct action. And I'm delighted to introduce our next presenter, who's going to train you all on these sorts of direct actions, as it's one that we'll be asking a lot of you to do over the congressional recess to advance the cause here at the Frontline. So I want to introduce Yong Jong Cho from the Green New Deal Network, who is ready to share how to create a successful moment like the one I had with the governor. So Yong Jong, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks so much, Tomas. That was awesome. I'm feeling really hyped. You just saw an awesome example of bird dogging. My name is Yong Jong Cho. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm so excited to tell you more tips. Tomas shared some incredible tips about how his bird dog example was so successful. And I'm going to start by sharing exactly what it is, then go into why we do it, And then finally, how to create such an event yourself. So bird dogging is used by grassroots activists to get candidates or elected officials on the record about important issues. Now, the idea is really, really simple. It is to get an official to say things that they wouldn't really say in a more structured environment. You want them to say something that is not a polished talking point and get them on record to talk about an issue and how they truly feel about it. Now, public officials and elected officials are very, very good, as you may know, at avoiding answers to questions. So through bird dogging, you can collect the answers and the proof that you need to hold them accountable. Bird dogging is also powerful because if you are persistent in finding them and asking the questions over and over again, elected officials have to come face to face with grassroots pressure consistently, and therefore you can move them to make new commitments too. Bird dog is the etymology of it is, it's a hunting dog that's used to hunt and flush out birds. And if you're a hunter, you know that, you're not always successful the first time. You have to be really persistent. And that's how we think about bird dogging as well. It really comes with persistence. And like Tomas also shared, like having a group chat and going out and finding those elected officials. And once you have a successful bird dog, it just becomes a core piece of your strategy that will move them towards your goal. So just to share more about how to bird dog. So bird dogging is traditionally a tactic that you can use at public events like town halls or a campaign stop or at their office. Or when electeds are doing some kind of meet and greet where constituents can ask questions or like a press conference. This is because you want an audience there, you want the press there, and you want people to say, hey, I heard, X person go on record about healthcare. But you can bird dog anywhere. It can be at your neighborhood diner or at a coffee shop or at the grocery store or on their way to a fundraiser. We really want to encourage you to get creative. And a lot of these opportunities can still exist, even though we're in 1 year of social distancing too. Now, there are situations where bird dogging is not always appropriate, so please use good judgment. For example, do not do this at a vaccination clinic. We know that there's going to be a ton of politicians going to vaccination clinics during the recess, and it might be the easiest place to find them, but we don't want to encourage you to do a direct action at a vaccination clinic during the pandemic. So if you can't figure out where your representative is going to be in person, then you can use one of the tactics that Robbie had shared earlier in the training. But let's say that you are able to find them at a public event. How do you prepare for this tactic? So at a bare minimum, you need at least 2 people to pull off a successful bird dog, ideally, right? You want 1 person to do the talking and 1 person to document the interaction. You can also pull together a slightly larger crew and folks can take on more roles. I will say though that if you don't have a video, it did not happen. So make sure that there is someone who is documenting the interaction because that is the proof that you will have to hold them accountable. But just to say a little bit about the roles, Tomas also shared it earlier. You need somebody who will ask the question, speak your truth, right? Like this person could be well-versed in the issue. And if there's someone in your crew that can speak pointedly to the issue because of their own lived experience, that is incredibly powerful because the question holds moral gravity and it's harder for the official to interrupt them when they're speaking about the issue. Like I said, you also need somebody, it's helpful to have someone to record the video These folks should be reliable, good on their feet, and always remember to press the record button. Ideally, you would hold the camera in landscape mode, so horizontally, because that footage is more versatile. And you can also live stream the video too. And if you have many people with you, one person can live stream and one person can record a standard video. Another role folks can have for people who want to participate but don't want to be in person is a researcher and trackers. So, where is your official holding events? When are they in their office? This tracker can follow, can set up a Google alert and see if there is an event happening that the elected official is hosting. Another key research role is researching your elected officials' history on the issue. So what have they said? What have they not said? What do you want them to say? These are all great questions that the researcher and trackers can have to prepare for a good bird dog. So we just talked about some roles, and you have a squad. And now I'm going to share some 3 essential steps for the next phase of planning. So the first, is finding the right opportunity. That's where your researchers come in to figure out where they are. The second is to make backup plans. So, what if the event changes? Maybe they cut Q&A because they're running over time, or the layout is different. And then the third is preparing your bird dog action by preparing the right question. So Tomas, so great that you shared your example, because you mentioned that you had a script running through your head and you knew exactly what you wanted to say. So, to prepare for your question, it's just important to remember that you might only have one shot. And so a good question has to be precise, ideally short, and helps generate press. So there are 3 types of questions that I'll talk about that can help generate news. The first is asking a yes or no question so that they have to answer. And it's also helpful for you to know, right? If you are asking a yes or no question and you're nervous, so you might not be hearing everything, but they're not answering yes or no, it helps you keep that in mind. So a yes or no question. It can also be a question that asks them to take an action, right? So the question could be, what are you going to do about it? That kind of question. And then the third type of question is a question that exposes their hypocrisy by asking follow-up questions. So we're going to spend some time sort of thinking of questions, but I am going to share some examples with you first. So when you get in front of a candidate, you need to make sure that your question is effective. So make sure that you practice and that your approach is appropriate for the situation, and try to anticipate any responses too. So politicians are really good at non-answers. So you can also think through the situation in your head. But here are some examples. So, during the recess, one of the questions that we as a Frontline want to encourage you to ask is, did you vote to invalidate the election because you oppose democracy? Right? Did you vote to invalidate the election because you oppose democracy? They might be like, no, that's outrageous. I did that because the election was fraudulent, right? And then you could say, oh, where did the fraud happen? And they might say, whatever kind of answer. And you could respond, right? Because you want to point to sort of this hypocrisy of, was it in cities with large large populations of Black and brown people? Do you think the votes of Black and brown people are not legitimate? So that's one kind of script and flow that you could imagine, but the starting question is, did you vote to invalidate the election because you oppose democracy? If you don't have that long of an interaction, you could also go and ask a short question. So the filibuster was greatly used to deny people their civil rights. If you support civil rights, then why do you oppose, or then why do you support the filibuster? So I just shared 2 examples of questions that you could ask during your bird dogs. And I would love to hear some of the questions that you'd like to ask. If you came face to face with your senator or your member of Congress, what types of questions are you excited to ask during recess? So remember, good questions are ones that will get a yes or no answer, will get them to take an action, or have great follow-up to expose their hypocrisy. So I'm gonna check my phone to see what types of questions that you'd be asking, and I can also share them all out as well. Will you nuke the filibuster? Love it, super short, gets right to the point. Can you live on less than $15 an hour? From Jessica. That is a great question. Thanks, Jessica. Let's get 1 or 2 more. Will you support HR 1 and HR 4? From Bob. Great. These are great, sort of short, precise, direct questions. Okay, there's 1 more. I would ask, do you oppose early child care and development to keep women out of the workforce? He said he did, straight up in front of the world, from Leslie. Yeah, I think this is a great question because it sort of forces them to respond, and you would have, it's an opportunity for you to have great follow-up as well to sort of expose their hypocrisy. So again, when thinking about your question, remember, get them on a yes or no and have good follow-up. Think of what they might say in response to your question and work with your coaches to think of ways to keep asking until their true motivations are revealed, right? Bird dogging is really about persistence. And so that's what it's going to take, is finding those opportunities and continuing to ask those questions so they really feel the pressure. So I'm going to share some final tips with you before I pass it back to Sharon. I'm going to tell you some specific tips on what will happen at the event and what you should do. So once you get to the event, make sure to position yourself strategically. Get there early to get a good seat, or stand in the directions where cameras are pointed. You can also get in the walking path too. Make sure that you are visible so that when it's time for Q&A, you will be picked. If everybody else's seat is sitting down and it's almost the end of the Q&A session and you haven't gotten your question asked, stand up, make yourself more visible so that they are forced to call on you. You also, right, we want you to have a backup plan in case you can't ask your question. So have a sign ready with your question. Bring a banner that you can unroll for photographers. You can wear a t-shirt that has a statement on it. You can write it on your mat. You can get really creative to have backup plans to make sure that your question can get answered by your elected officials. And your documenter or your photographer can capture those interactions too, right? If you don't have a video or a photo for a creative action, it did not happen. And lastly, be prepared to speak with the media afterwards. If you said, oh, here are some great examples of some visuals for creative actions. And lastly, be prepared to speak with the media afterwards, right? If you have a successful interaction, journalists are going to want to talk to you. So, your talking points should be similar to the question that you asked. And don't be afraid to say that the congressman or congresswoman didn't answer my question and to approach reporters if you had a successful bird dog encounter that was not captured by the media. So the media is there. If the media is there, go ahead and approach the reporters. So that is sort of the end of all the things bird dogging. I really hope that you get the truth out there and move the powerful work of the Frontline. I'm excited to see all the videos and photos of the bird dog. It's sort of an incredible moment, and we need to be out there doing this work. So thank you all for being here. And Sharon, are you there? Can you come back on and take us home?
For a powerful presentation and training on bird dogging. I know I'm excited to get back into it. It's been a while since I've bird dogged, so I don't know about y'all at home, but I'm definitely looking forward to trying this tactic on again. I want to say thank you as well to Robbie and to Tomas for their story sharing, for their training, for their contributions to tonight's training. Y'all got me really excited about everything that's going to be coming up. Some really creative fun coming our way. And I hope you all are ready to join us and take action and move communities on the front line forward. So I want to remind you to text ACTION, there it is on your screen, to 30403 to join us and attend an action or lead an action in your state. Tonight you learned how to do powerful direct actions, how to do them safely with car caravans by masking up or distancing outside, and how to get some good old-fashioned bird dogging done. We're counting on you to take action and move the front line forward. I hope to see you out there taking action on this congressional recess, holding our representatives accountable on behalf of our communities. Thanks so much for gathering with us tonight, and don't forget to join us next week. Talk again soon.